Another Monday evening is here with us again. Good evening and a warm welcome to your favorite mixed bag award-winning program, Energy 101, the only exclusive energy program on radio in Ghana today. And it's a one-stop shop show which brings you an incisive information on energy news and interviews. Of course, 1 hour of this information. It comes your way every Monday evening at around this time, 7 p.m. live on Asaase Radio 99.5, also streaming live on our Facebook page. My name is Aboagye-Wiafe. Very good to have you on board tonight. Energy 101 is proudly sponsored by Bui Power Authority. As a global advocacy for energy transition persists, Bui Power Authority has been mandated to lead Ghana's renewable energy push through execution of state renewable projects, undertaking its own energy initiatives and promoting clean energy alternatives in the country. Join us in powering sustainable development. Bui Power Authority, your renewable energy leaders. It also brought to you kind courtesy Goel. Goel, good energy. Goel, yeah. Tonight on Energy 101, Namibia is said to be the new Guyana in Africa, following a trio of significant oil discoveries in the Orange Basin with a potential of up to 11 billion barrels of crude oil. Very interesting development. But what does this mean for that country's economy and for Africa in general? Stay tuned for more. Plus, the African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, in collaboration with the Petroleum Commission Ghana, is organizing a roundtable conference on gas flaring and fugitive methane emissions. What do these terms mean and how do they impact climate change? We'll be telling you more about this. Don't go away. Thank you so much for making time with me tonight on Energy 101. Welcome back. Let's give you some tidbits in the world of energy today. And the establishment of the African Energy Bank has been lauded by the CEO of Ghana Gas, who is also the chairman for Society for Petroleum Engineers, SPE Ghana, Dr. Benjamin Asante, at the second Ghana Biennial International Summit and Exhibition 2024 in Accra. The event is organized by the SPE Ghana section on the theme Embracing Innovation, Redefining the Future of the Oil and Gas Industry in Africa. Dr. Asante highlighted the challenges of financing, available infrastructure, and appropriate fiscal regimes as grey areas to innovate to help sustain the oil and gas sector.
It's clear, I think, in various sections of the continent that there certainly is a gross lack of access to capital. The idea of getting an African energy bank, it's laudable. I think that will be something that probably can handle an issue like this. We also are aware that we do not have adequate requisite infrastructure. I recall I was part of a team that was looking at having all those who are net exporters of gas, for instance, to have the requisite infrastructure to connect to those who are net importers. So we're talking people in Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, and whatnot. So the idea of having that Morocco pipeline is great. Certainly, the West African gas pipeline, which has been in operation for well over 10, 15 years, is also a laudable idea to bring gas over through to Benin, Togo, and certainly to Ghana as the anchor point. But we need more intra-continent to link those who are net exporters of this valuable commodity to those who are net importers. So adequate requisite infrastructure is critical. The fiscal regime has to be good because we are all competing for the same investment dollars, if you will. So we need to make sure that our fiscal regime is attractive.
And that was the CEO of Ghana Gas and also the chairman for Society for Petroleum Engineers, SPE Ghana, Dr. Ben Asante. The Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh, commended Society of Petroleum Engineers for its commitment in helping to shape the future of the oil and gas industry. In a speech read for him, a Deputy Energy Minister, Collins Adomako-Mensah, said SPE's efforts have won the admiration of the ministry. He urged the SPE to continue to invest in research and development.
Your commitment to promoting innovation, which is evident in this key event, collaboration and knowledge sharing is crucial to shaping the future of our industry. SPE's contributions have elevated the discourse around energy and catalyze significant advancements in the industry. I commend the Society of Petroleum Engineers, particularly the Ghana section. Your industrious efforts have won my approval on several occasions. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, innovation and sustainability are not mere buzzwords. They are driving forces. As we move forward, it is essential that we place innovation at the epicenter of our oil and gas industry and harness its potential to promote sustainable development. The future of the oil and gas sector will be shaped by our ability to adapt to changing market conditions, technological advancements, and shifting global dynamics. We must endeavor to continue to invest in research and development, and we must open to new ideas and perspectives. And let us collaborate across borders, learning from global best practices and forging partnerships that accelerate our journey towards a sustainable Africa. The AFTA and the African Union Mayan vision can be utilized to facilitate this collaboration. Together, we can chart a course that intertwines economic growth with environmental stewardship by harnessing the vast potential of our resources.
And that was the Deputy Energy Minister Collins Adomako Mensah, who was speaking on behalf of the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Poku Pempe, this afternoon at the opening of the second biennial conference, which was held, the second Ghana Biennial International Summit and Exhibition 2024, which opened in Accra this afternoon. Now let's move to our main story for today. And Namibia is said to be the new Guyana, following a trio of significant oil discoveries in the Orange Basin with the potential for up to 11 billion barrels of crude oil. Several majors such as Shell, TotalEnergies, Galp, Chevron, Azule Energy, and ExxonMobil have acquired or are in the process of acquiring acreages in Namibia. It is believed that Namibia could produce between 500,000 to 1 million barrels of oil per day by the mid-2030s. This would make it among the top 5 oil producers in Africa. Experts also say the country's $13 billion GDP could double or even triple by 2040. But it means Namibia would have to do more to translate this newfound resource wealth into equitable development and structural transformation, governance, institutional reforms to address the large unemployment and inequality gaps. And of course, not to repeat some bad lessons that abound with oil-producing countries on the continent. Our focus tonight is on Namibia, and we'll be shedding some light on the new kid on the block. Dr. Yusuf Sulemana is right with me here in the studio. He's back from Oman and he's cooling off in his home country. And he's in cantonments now in the studios of Asaase Radio 99.5. We'll be hearing live from him very soon. But first, we want to cross over and speak to an energy journalist in Namibia known as Dwight Sifun, who is going to join us via Zoom to get his perspectives about the latest development in that country. Now, Dwight, good evening.
How are you doing, Emmanuel?
I'm very well. And how are you doing too?
I'm all right. Am I coming through clear?
Yes, you're loud and clear. And good to see you again after we met somewhere else in other parts of the world.
Yeah, in a very cold part, yes.
I know, right? So quickly tell us, how is the situation like? Within the oil and gas industry in Ghana, especially when you have some good news hitting so much oil, jackpots actually.
Well, Emmanuel, if you turn the clock back a little bit to like 3 years back, at the start of 2021, obviously that was when the first sort of like public drilling or public exploration drilling activities took place onshore in Namibia. And then just the next year, the discoveries offshore, which is now the discoveries that you highlighted to the listeners, were basically also made public, that came through from Qatari backing.
Oh, right. So does it mean like earlier on you had onshore discoveries and now offshore? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Well, the onshore is not actually like discoveries. It was just exploration drilling in the Kavango Delta. This obviously means involving Namibia and Botswana's sort of like that specific part of northeast Namibia, northwest Botswana. Currently, that's the only onshore activity that is for exploration right now. But the big finds have all been offshore in the sea.
And that's why you've hit the oil.
That's where we hit the oil, yes.
So what are the estimates as we speak, and what are the energy experts in your country talking about?
Well, on the current basis right now, Emmanuel, the discussions obviously about the estimates are all information that's coming through from the oil majors, primarily because if you follow the news outside of Namibia that they report, basically like many of the online oil platforms indicate estimates coming through from the French major, from Shell itself, which all could be even larger than the Guyana find, because Namibia and Guyana are being positioned or touted as the two largest oil discoveries. You don't know what are the actual numbers because in most cases, the information is that they are still testing and that they're still trying to assess the extent to how big these particular oil reserves are.
That's huge. That's huge. Now, but do you think that Namibia is ready for this find, especially when it just came up like that? I mean, are you ready? Because other countries that also discovered quite significant sums of oil eventually fell under the resource curse. And so how prepared is Namibia to meet this good discovery?
Well, and what is a nice thing right now, Emmanuel, is that there are two clocks. There are two time frames that actually Namibia has the luxury of enjoying. So in the first clock, which is based upon production, when actual production will take place, meaning people extracting the oil out of the particular reserves,
right.
The time frame is set at 2030 or 2029.
Okay.
So that's the only time when
you're going to bring out your first oil.
Yeah, that's when the first barrels will be pumped.
Okay.
The discussion now currently between now 2024 and 2020 and 2030 is all about firstly getting legislation in order, meaning having an Oil and Gas Act, which is law, and thus also assessing and seeing if we can develop the necessary capacity in order for as much Namibians to find jobs in this particular sector to participate in the extraction. And those are the current that's the current discussion going on, because Namibians are continuously asking us, the media, how are we going to participate? This is a resource we've never known. This is a resource we've never dealt with. This is a resource we've only seen when you go to your petrol station to put the fuel in your car. There's a resource that you've only seen in terms of it is being exported to Namibia, and the revenue generated through is from taxes and the necessary fuel levies that the government collects in terms of, basically for its particular financing and revenue generation for various infrastructure and particular, tax collection duties. So this then obviously means much of the activity on the ground that you see has been all downstream, meaning distribution, minimal storage, and overall retail commercialized enterprises. This means that the top half of that activity is now what Namibia also has to look at. So this means we need to see how Namibians are going to participate in drilling, in the necessary technologies around refining, and the necessary technology and the necessary involvement around continuous job availability. Because this now means you need to have the experts. This also means that your universities need to start training the same people.
Exactly.
And these are all the missing blocks. Or if you think about it like in Lego, these are all the missing blocks that you have to get right in order to benefit the most out of these resources.
Right. Thank you so much, Dwight, and we'll be counting on you subsequently to tell us the good story as it unfolds elsewhere or in Namibia. Thank you so much for your time. Dwight Sifun is an energy journalist in Namibia. Let's also get the views of the Section Director for Society of Petroleum Consumers Ghana section, who is very conversant with the development in Namibia because he's actually been involved in some work there in recent times. Let's hear what he says.
I mean, Namibia is a way to go today. Many oil companies are going to Namibia, namely Chevron, ExxonMobil, Total, and everybody is going to Namibia. And basically it's because they have so much untapped resources. But yes, we live in a continent where resource scarce is an issue, where we're not able to drive policies to mitigate the resource scarce. And let me say this emphatically, that resource management, mismanagement in Africa is like a cancer. And like cancer, it's very difficult to cure. Even if you can cure it, it will lead you to death. You understand? And that is where we see ourselves. We do have this cancer that's called the resource scarce. And like I said initially, you do not imagine that more than 90% of the resources we produce here in Africa is exported. Crude oil and gas we produce, 90% of them is exported to the Western world. It's being refined and is brought back to us to buy. So let's run this economics. Very simple. You buy crude oil or you sell crude oil at a price you don't have any regulatory information on or impact on. You cannot tell how much price you want to give to your crude oil. It's determined by somebody. At the same time, the crude oil product you are buying, which is the diesel and petrol, that you are importing to your country, you still don't have control over that price.
Well, so those were the thoughts. Those were the thoughts of Dr. Riverson Opong. He is a section director for Society of Petroleum Consumers Ghana. He's been doing some work in Namibia, so he knows a lot about the new discoveries and how the country is positioning itself in recent times. And we'll come to the studio now and speak with Dr. Yusuf Sulemana, who is my guest tonight on the show. And he'll be talking about the impact of this discovery on Namibia's economy itself and also on the whole of Africa, if we have to focus our attention on buying our own oil, as the Africa Petroleum Producers Organization has been touting in recent times. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
With exciting choices to energize your ride, giving you more options to take you further. Watch this space for your choice. Goil, yeah. Good energy hits the road with exciting choices to energize your ride, giving you more options to take you further. Watch this space for your choice. Goil, yeah.
Welcome back to Energy 101. My name is Aboagye-Wiafe. And like I said, Dr. Yusuf Sulemana is here. He's been listening to the story from Namibia and also heard from Dr. Riverson Opong on his thoughts on Namibia's oil discoveries. Doc, good evening once again. Welcome.
Good evening, Ima, and thank you for having me. At least I've seen you.
Yes, it's good.
Quite some time now.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right. So, listening to all these good stories from Namibia, what's your own assessment of the situation there as we speak now?
Yeah, so not to be biased, as an African, I just will have to be. I'm so happy to hear such a development emanating from Namibia. And like my good friend Riverson mentioned, we have this perennial problem within African continent where we haven't been able to take advantage of resources that we discover. And so on that score, I will say that Namibia, they have no excuse to fail. There's a lot to learn within the good and then the bad and then the ugly. So you cannot say you've not been in the upstream before. This is an industry that has been in existence for almost a century. You know, though it's just coming at a point where a lot of African new players are coming to the scene. But new players coming to the scene doesn't mean that dynamics have changed, technology has changed. No, it's still the same thing. So that's why I'm saying that Namibia will not have any excuse to fail. They have a lot of learnings to do, and they have to be able to use the resources to benefit the populace. And I think that is key. And I think Namibia, they strategically have a huge advantage, and the advantage here is about the population. Okay. Imagine Namibia by mid-2030, they're able to churn out even 500,000 barrels with a population of less than 3 million. Let's say as of 2022, they had a population of 3 million. Less than 3 million.
That's very low.
Yes, with 3 million, population,
with all these resources.
With all these resources, you can imagine.
But Doc, it's coming at a time when we're talking about energy transition and trying to reduce or remove the emphasis on fossil fuel. Is it going to affect the edge to develop the fossil fuel resources there?
Yeah, the challenge is there, but it shouldn't affect that. The worst possible scenario will be to, like I mentioned, will be to take advantage and then invest in areas that will deliver a removal of heavier ends from the hydrocarbon stream. And it's not surprising that if you look at the players that are running there, it tells you that
the Chevrons, the big players.
These are the big players. They are not the mean players that we have. If you see Chevron, they say the meat will always attract the vulture, wherever it is. Yeah. Right. So, and it is interesting to know that if you have observed the industry, Ima, let's say 2021, 2020, 2022, after COVID, there was constrained investment into the world of hydrocarbon, undoubtedly. Yeah. And so the champions of renewable fed into that and did a lot of, massive, advocacy to drive investment to the area of renewable. Yes, they succeeded to the extent some huge investment went into the world of renewables. But, investors are not that too much patient. They don't have that too much patience. Returns are very important. So they noticed that by the end of 2022, even though with the massive capital discipline that ensued in the oil and gas industry across board, Total, BP, and whatever, they all did what we call capital discipline. They were not pumping too much. But the shareholders saw massive returns on investment, something that they've been able to cover. Even most of them covered multiple times that they lost even within COVID. So, and I said, like investors, they will always, go for what to deliver the goods.
Exactly. But Doc, is it possible that, because they have not produced a barrel of oil yet. It's all exploration and discoveries. Yeah. Now, is it possible that if they go into production, their estimates, will be short-lived or something like that? Is it possible after discovering?
Yes, that's very interesting, and I have personal experience in my company.
Okay.
That is why data in oil and gas is very important. The credibility of the data is very important. All FID investment decisions, they are all based on how credible your data is. So that's why that portion, that particular space, they take a lot of time, and they will sink in so much money. That money is not for free, because that data will guarantee how much investors are going to pull. So with these guys going in, it means that the data is proven credible. Okay. So if the data is proven credible and reliable, it's still 50-50. You can overshoot or you can undershoot.
So within this time, before they produce, what would you advise the country to be doing? Because now the data is showing that they have so much oil, but they've not produced it. So what would you be advising the government to do to really position itself?
Yeah, so the government should, like I said, they will have to learn a lot from existing players. They already have upstream, they already have downstream that is existing. Upstream is coming. They shouldn't make a mistake and think that these are two different industries altogether. They should work towards linking up the two. That is what most African nations, they missed. And it's not helping them to take advantage of their energy industry, because at the point in time when the money starts coming in, they just get confused what to do with the money, but forgetting that no, this is a windfall. I need to use that to support somewhere. Exactly. So yes, the learning that they can do, what I will ask them is to look at massive structural transformation of the economy. They should try to use that to transform their economy, and they can do that. If like I said, there's a lot of learnings to do, and where I can encourage them to do is to make sure that they drift towards linking the upstream and downstream. They shouldn't operate them as segregated entities if they want to drive the needed advantage.
Now, in the spirit of AFTA or the AFCFTA, do you think that coming among the bigger players, Nigeria, the Gabons, Libya, and so on and so forth, Angola, do you think that it's time now to look for markets in Africa? That is what the Apple has been highlighting for some time now, that we consume, because there's a huge market for African consumption of petrol. So do you think that they should establish refineries? They should go into that form of development to make sure that we benefit as a continent? How impactful is it going to be?
Without refineries, we're not going to take advantage of AFTA. And offline, you remember I mentioned to you that don't be surprised that we'll end up buying Dangote for refined oil from Africa, because we are slow to act. Really.
From Europe, you say?
Yes, from Europe. Thank you. Because right now, if you look at how pragmatic these players are, the Total, the BPs, and then the rest, they are going about signing contract with Dangote, and they will take this oil, this finished product to Europe or wherever.
That's interesting.
And then if we are not careful, we end up buying, import product from Europe, but it is Dangote product, which we could have taken advantage. So I want to urge our local marketers that Dangote is making a point. They are hitting the ground running. They should try to take advantage. Right now, Dangote is importing about 24 million barrels from US, crude oil from US. That shows that the guy, he means business. So I want to urge our marketers to look at possible opportunities that they can deliver competitive prices, to the end user or to the pump prices. And if they can leave these products at areas that they can drive that competitive advantage, I think it will inure to the benefit of end users at the end of the day. Yeah.
I know you don't have much time, so just let me have your final words, especially for the Namibians in this regard.
Yeah, so we will celebrate with them. They shouldn't get overexcited. People have been there, and they came back empty-handed. Yes. Yeah. So I will just urge them to take full advantage of the huge amount of resources available. When I say resources, the learnings available. And I think Guyana is doing something fantastic. They are doing a very good job in terms of how they are utilizing their resources. They can learn a lot from these players. Ghana, also, we are not doing bad. Ima, there are some things they can also learn from Ghana, and they can learn well. And one thing we share with Namibia is the stability, political instability, and that is key to investment. Okay. It's only unfortunate in recent time we haven't gotten anybody coming in. We hope somebody will come in to complement the effort of ENI and TALO. But with the serene political environment, which Namibia is also enjoying, I think it's just making the space very interesting. And that's also a panacea, a conduit to attracting investment. If you have, a very smooth political atmosphere.
Finally, since 2018, Ghana has not signed any new petroleum agreement. And it means that we are either not investing so much in new petroleum exploration, or we're just not doing something right. What advice would it come to Ghana from Namibia?
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that we haven't had something coming up. Hopefully, we were thinking Pecan is on the horizon. We were hoping that they can come. What I will urge our duty bearers is to facilitate areas like the FID when it comes to the final investment decision. It's a key sticking point. If you don't facilitate it and you delay that, because in the oil and gas investment, especially the upstream, time is of very essence. You delay it to your own peril, So Namibia, I think they are getting to that stage, FID. If you don't cross FID, you have nothing. Okay. The FID is critical, and that's where that's when the investment decision is taken, and that's when they bring the players, the political actors within the country on board, to Jojo. So at that particular point, we have to be nimble. When I say nimble, be quick in taking the decision. Whilst you don't allow the multinational to take advantage of you, you can also be flexible so that they can be win-win at the end of the day. But if you unnecessarily, become robotic, and then you don't give a free much space for flexibility, and it delays the FID. Delaying the FID will mean that you are delaying the barrel that are going to lift from the ground, and that could delay the whole thing. So that's the advice I can give to my friends from Namibia.
Thank you so much. Dr. Yusuf Sulemana, international energy consultant based in Oman, sharing his thoughts on the development in Namibia, which has just become the new kid on the block with huge and significant crude oil production. It's not production at this time, crude oil deposits or exploration. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Yusuf Sulemana. It's live on Energy 101. Now, Ghanaian bulk oil distributor and oil trading company Stratcon Energy Trading Limited has declared its resolve to explore purchasing of petroleum products from Nigeria's Dangote oil refinery and take advantage of pricing and transport costs associated with bringing in products from that refinery. Stratcon has recently signed a contract with the Liberia Petroleum Refinery Company for supply of fuel. In an interview with Energy 101, the executive director of Stratcon, Harry Chumesi Campbell, said his company will definitely get some volumes from Dangote. He also gave some highlights of the MOU signed with the Liberian Refinery Company.
Liberia Petroleum Refinery is the quasi-government entity in Liberia which was legally established, I believe, a little over 30 years ago. The idea behind LPRC was that LPRC is supposed to be both a regulator, importer, and also in charge of management of the Liberian downstream sector. When you talk about downstream sector, it includes from the importation to distribution and the product delivery to the end users at the filling station. LPRC over the past 30 years has been a little bit dormant on their importation side, and due to that, as a regulator, they decided to give some concessions to importers to bring in their own products. These concessions to importers to bring in their own products, majority of them were taken up by importers or mining companies that works with importers, or mining companies that have created an importation wing just to make sure they have enough fuel for their production in the mining sectors. So LPRC, the past 30 years, since its dormancy in the importation side, it focused on enhancing other importers' effectiveness in the distribution market, and also regulating that market alongside with the end user market, being the OOMC side. But LPRC holds, more than 95% of the distribution infrastructure in Liberia, being the terminal plants, the receiving the receiving facility, and also some pipelines left and right, and other tank farms. Though recently they've opened up to about 2 private entities to build additional tank farms in order to support their infrastructure there. So with us, with Stratcon and LPRC, the relationship started about 4 months ago when we were hearing on the market that possibly Liberia is having some shortages of fuel, and they needed OTCs or oil trading companies to look at helping the government procure products. When we heard that, we looked at how to connect with LPRC based on our research, and we got some correspondence going with LPRC. Initially, they made us aware that truly they haven't done any importation in a while, but their mandate, though it includes importation, has been dormant, and the new president wanted them to make sure that they are importing, one, at minimum, they are importing strategic storage, which will be available if and when the market seems to be short of products. So the discussions went on, and we decided to invite them to Ghana. They came to Ghana with their board chairman, their MD, the head of marketing, the head of operations, and the CFO. In Ghana, we hosted them for 3 days, where we explained our trading capacity to them, our ability to bring products to them, and then the discussion also went towards how we will be able to export products from Ghana to Liberia. So,
and that was the executive director of Stratcon, Harry Chumisi Campbell, in that interview there. Now, the shift from fossil fuel energy to alternative energy forms, also known as energy transition, continues to gain momentum in line with the Paris Agreement and subsequent COP expectations. In light of the attribution of the climate change concerns to the growing environmental damage globally, relevant policy frameworks are being deployed. For countries that are blessed with oil and gas resources and are heavily dependent on hydrocarbon revenues to fund their budgets, they need to continue exploiting these resources while they strive to develop regulations and technologies for this exploitation to be carried out in a sustainable manner, especially with regards to the environment. Now, cutting routine gas flaring and reducing fugitive methane emissions are among the priority pathways for the oil and gas industry. To improve its environmental credentials and reduce emissions, the Africa Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, in collaboration with the Petroleum Commission of Ghana, is organizing a roundtable conference on gas flaring and fugitive methane emissions. The roundtable conference is themed towards zero routine gas flaring and lower methane emissions in APO oil and gas operations, and is scheduled for the 21st and 22nd of May 2024 at the Labadi Beach Hotel here in Accra. I have with me in the studio the Director of Research at the APO, Dr. Taher Naja, also the Manager in charge of Health, Safety and Environment at the Petroleum Commission, Engineer Jonathan Nadomite, and also the Director in charge of Local Content, Kweku Boating. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Please drop closer to the mic.
Thank you.
And I need more live from you. Kweku Boating is not a new person here, but the two of you are new. But I'll try to make you feel comfortable. All right, so let's move into action now. But what exactly is methane, these big words, methane emissions and gas flaring? Let me start with you, Engineer.
Okay. So I'll start by saying that methane is one of the hydrocarbon components that comes with crude oil production.
Okay.
And methane is gas. Methane has economic use for energy related issues. Now, during the production of oil and gas, we are interested in the oil.
Right.
Yes. And normally there are two types of the production. Under exploration, you have gas in the oil, which is called the associated gas.
Okay.
And then you can only have a reservoir that only has gas alone. We call it non-associated.
Like the ENI reservoir?
Yes, like the ENI reservoir. So when you have oil and gas together, that is the associated gas in it, during the production, the gas that is there could be a lot. You may not be able to, evacuate the gas in terms of other infrastructure to make use of that gas. You may not be able to, operate it because of safety issues. Because as you operate, gas can be troublesome whilst you're operating.
Okay.
So during these processes, you tend to flare gas. So flaring...
Flare gas meaning releasing the gas into
the environment.
Okay.
And there are reasons for doing so. One reason is resource management. That is, when the reservoir is having too much gas and is hampering production, then you may look at alternative ways to actually release this gas going.
Why release it if we have good use for gas? Because we also need gas to power, plants, thermal plants and things like that.
Yes.
So why then release them?
So that is what I'm saying, that it's based on either economic reasons or for resource management.
Right.
So if you have the infrastructure, then you can make use of the gas.
Okay.
If you don't have the infrastructure, you may want to flare it. Secondly, there is also a flaring for safety purposes. When I operate in the facility and there is an upset and I have to take off the gas out so that I can do some maintenance work or something like that, that one too will cause you to flare.
Okay.
So flaring has both, that is the act of releasing methane into the atmosphere in a controlled manner through a combustion process.
Okay, so it means that the gas that is flared contains methane.
Yes.
Okay, and methane is a poisonous gas? Is a toxic gas?
No, methane. If I would say, methane is a form of energy. And that is what we use for the production of electricity in Ghana.
Right.
But in the absence of where the infrastructure is not there for you to harness it, then some organization may want to flare. So that process of flaring methane gas in a controlled manner
through a combustion process is what we call the flaring.
Right. What about the other one, fugitive? Why fugitive?
So, for instance, when you are operating your facility, so the process has different units. You have compressors working, you have separators working, you also have pipelines that you are working, and some pumps as well that are working within the operation. Then there are storage areas where you store the gas and all those things. So fugitive emissions are those small emissions that comes from these processes. If your pump or compressors are operating, there may be some gaps that some gaseous elements may come out from it. Yes. At the pipe flange, where you have two pipes connecting each other with a gasket in it, over there, it can come out from there. You can have leakages there. If you're operating a valve and other things, so all these things come out, and they are called emissions. They are in smaller quantity, but for the purpose of accounting of how much of such gases are
into the atmosphere.
Exactly. So we call it fugitive emissions because they come in very small concentration from these various your tank areas, your pipelines, and all those things.
Right. Thank you very much. Now let me come to Kweku Boateng. Now I know that at the onset of Ghana's oil and gas production, we used to hear what we call zero gas flaring policy. And for that matter, we were not, or IOCs were not required to flare gas into the atmosphere. Then after a while, we heard, Talo had to flare because it was putting the facility into danger. And so, as it is now, do we have so much gas flaring, and to what extent is it damaging the environment?
Yeah, thank you, and good evening to your listeners. Thank you for having us here this evening. Yeah, back to your question. Yes. When we made a discovery of oil and gas in commercial quantities back 2007, immediately after that, government came out with a new energy policy. And one of the key aspects of the policy, as we said, was a zero gas flaring policy, which we committed to bring the gas flaring to near zero, apart from the operational flaring or venting. One aspect of the policy was for government Ghana to put in infrastructure for gas exports and utilization domestically. However, we couldn't put the gas infrastructure in place on time as planned. So there was when they started production in 2010, the gas infrastructure was not ready to export the gas from the fields, and that's also explained by Jonathan. In Jubilee Field, the field is very rich in associated gas. The oil you produce quite a red oil, associated gas. So as you produce more oil, as the gas come out, and you need to get an export market for gas. When the infrastructure was not ready, one option was for us to re-inject the gas back to the reservoir, one for the pressure maintenance, and other source was used for gas operations. Once you meet the requirement for pressure maintenance or field usage, the excess gas, we find it difficult to use excess gas as we didn't have infrastructure for gas export. So what the option available to us was to, one, either we flare the gas or we cut down production so that you minimize that associated gas that you are producing. And since there are revenue implications, we're cutting down production. We took a decision at that time to flare the excess gas beyond the one that is used for field operations. However, when around 2014, when the gas infrastructure was available for the gas export, we were able to utilize the excess gas that is being produced. However, there have been some, so from 2014, the gas that we were flaring minimized.
Because you had the facility.
The facility is there.
Onshore facility.
Yeah.
Gas.
Exactly. But when 10 production came in, added to Jubilee production, they're producing more oil. We had more associated gas were coming in. And a time came whereby the capacity of the 150 cubic meter capacity for gas processing was also exhausted. There's a need to add additional processing second train, which the government is working on it. However, the one reason why we're having some gas flaring in recent years has been, as Jonathan said, there has been a system upset of the facility with regard to the gas compression facility on the APSO. And also, the continuous re-injection in the past has led to a situation whereby some of the wells have been saturated, and further re-injection may damage the reservoir. So we have to commission together with EPA how to permit some gas flaring, one for safety reasons, that we need to also protect the reservoir and the facilities associated with it.
But to the detriment of the environment.
That's a difficult decision you have to take. Every day, I mean, it's a trade-off that you have to look at. Yeah. And EPA, which concerned about the environment, actually also even levy the companies as a deterrent. Anytime they apply for a permit for EPA, charge them per unit of gas that they flare. That was a deterrent. And the Petroleum Commission, too, from the resource management point of view, we, through the control of the production process, we make sure that we discourage the companies from flaring. But it comes to a situation where sometimes we cannot help, but it allows some minimum degree of flare. But I have to say that for Jubilee and 10 fields, the quantity of gas that is being flared has reduced. Talo, for instance, for the past 2 years, invested a lot in the flare reduction and facilities, which have reduced the current request for flaring, for instance, for Jubilee, they reduced it to around 30 million cubic feet and 50 million cubic feet per day, which is quite significant reduction.
All right. Let me come to Dr. Taher Naja. You are the Director of Research at APU. Maybe you may want to tell us, for the sake of those who don't know, what is APU and why is APU pursuing this area?
First of all, thank you very much for having me together with my colleagues from the Petroleum Commission. And I say good evening to your audience, Asaase Radio. APU is the African Petroleum Producers Organization. Is an organization that was originated back in 1987. At that time, 8 member countries were the members of this organization that was called association that time. And the association was established with a totally different objective and vision from what the organization is doing today. Sometime when this energy transition start to be a common objective and issue to some, the oil producers in Africa decided to come together to see how to tackle the challenges that are brought about by energy transition and how to cope with energy transition. So they decided to transform the association into an organization with different objectives, different strategic objectives, different vision and different mission. And this was launched in 2019, after which many other oil and gas producers from the continent joined the organization. And today we have total of 18 member countries.
Wow, oil producing countries.
Oil and gas producing countries. Some of them are just recognized that they have reserves and they decided to join now instead of waiting until they start producing. And among them, they have the more than 90% of the oil and gas reserves and more than 95% of the today's production. So this is the organization. Why we are organizing this roundtable together with our colleagues at the Petroleum Commission. They are co-organized. They are not just hosting. We organizing it together. Co-organizers, yes, jointly. Why we did that? Because of the developments nowadays that the industry have really to have another look into the way they do their operations. They have to do everything in environmental sustainable manners. So they have to go and have another look into how much emissions they have. When we say emissions, we talk about the greenhouse gas emissions. Forget about the other environmental implications that the industry is already working on, other pollution activities. But greenhouse gas emissions, The main greenhouse gas is the CO2 that we produce when we burn hydrocarbons. And this is why what we do in gas flaring, we burn the natural gas, the associated natural gas that come with the oil, as my colleague explained very well. And by burning, we produce a lot of CO2. This is a greenhouse gas.
But there's this concern that Africa don't, emits much as compared to the developed countries. And so why is it that important that we still have to contain gas flaring?
In general, the global warming is like a global issue. Okay. Everybody is contributing to, and the whole contribution of the whole continent of Africa, including North Africa and all sub-Saharan Africa, in terms of today emission is well, I think, below 3%.
That's
the global emission.
And
historically speaking, the accumulated CO2 that's already in the atmosphere and is causing what's being sensed today as a global warming, the contribution of Africa again is less than 4%. So in fact, we should not be like taking lead into all these actions, but the industry has to improve its operations. This is like we want, because we see that demand for oil and gas will continue for some very good time. We are not of the opinion, all the Africans are not of the opinion, and many others, not only Africans, are not of the opinion that oil demand will stop tomorrow. But it will continue, but we want to produce and exploit our resources in much better way. We don't want really to produce the emissions we used to produce before. So these two areas you see in the round table are our priority: methane emissions and gas flaring. Gas flaring means the emission of CO2.
Okay.
We want to control that by finding alternatives to the associated gas.
Now, you are with health, safety and environment. Are there any health hazards that are linked to these emissions?
Health is not direct now. It's not direct. This is the global warming is the
it's more
issue. That's the issue.
Right. Okay, Engineer Domite, so what are we expecting tomorrow? What kind of areas are we touching on these areas when we go to the opening tomorrow?
Okay, so it's a broad spectrum of topics that we'll be tackling, but it's going to be much on the countries, each member country, what sort of programs they are taking to manage these flaring and methane emissions. We'll also be looking at the sort of measurement that is required in actually measuring and quantifying the methane emission and trying to inventorize it. There will be other areas also which will be looking deeper into environmental impacts as well.
So who are we expecting? Who are some of the speakers that are scheduled to participate tomorrow?
I'll leave this for my director to...
All right.
Thank you. So the speakers provide, as was explained that another, we have member countries from APO coming. So you have the speakers from the policymakers and government officials from the member countries from APO who will be coming. I think you're expecting about 30 or so members from APO who are coming. You also have the industry experts from Ghana, from the operators, Talo, ENI, Cosmos Energy, Springfield, others who are also speaking. Then we have the operators of facilities, like Jensen, who was operating the APSO Jack, then Modek operating the APSO, John Mills, and then Talo coming. And we also have academia, researchers from KNUST, University of Sunyani, University of Energy, Renewable Energy in Sunyani, UMAT from Takwa also coming, as well as our own University of Ghana, all coming. So some of them have done research, and ISEP have done some research among the 5 member countries on methane emission and control. You have opportunity to present their research findings for discussion. And you also have government officials from the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Environment, Petroleum Commission, to also look at it from policy point of view, what are the measures put in place to tackle emissions.
Okay.
And they will also be there.
Right. Now, Doc, finally, we don't have much time, but I know that Apple is involved in heavily, prioritizing research and development, apart from establishing markets and also, financing options, various financing options. But with research and development, what are you expecting to take out of this roundtable?
As my colleagues said, the roundtable covers all the aspects that are related to gas flaring and methane emissions, including, the measures, including the regulatory and incentives that are being taken by governments and by the regulators, including the technology that's available both to utilize the gas and also to be able to measure and quantify the leaks and the emissions. And then we want to listen to member country case studies, member country experience, and also the operators and experts, as he just said.
Engineer, so what is the Petroleum Commission expecting at the end of it all? What will be the key performance indicator out of this?
Well, these discussions actually would adhere to one, policy, as my director said, because through the discussions, member countries will be able to appreciate what level of direction each government is doing. Okay. So that will improve policy. Two, it also provide to the regulator an opportunity, or the regulators an opportunity to see what sort of regulations they need to put in place to actually manage these activities that are going on, looking at economic issues, health and safety issues, as well as other benefits from this. Right. And then finally, it will also help operators to learn from each other, because it becomes more of a peer sort of review.
Mr. Martin, is it going to influence policy in any way?
Yeah, certainly, yeah. If you look at the program outline, on day one, for instance, you have the high-level discussion involving the various ministers from APO, discussing the policy issues from many governments. And we also will discuss policy framework. What are the policy and regulatory framework that we can put together to minimize methane emissions and reduce gas flaring? So we hear from policy point of view what different countries are doing to control gas flaring and methane emissions. And we hope that in accordance with the APO framework, whatever discussion that will come, you have a common communique which will represent the position of the member countries with regard to the gas flaring and methane emissions. So we think that the outcome will certainly input into our policies and review our policies by learning from what other countries are doing.
Right.
In addition to what Jonathan said, one key message that we expect at the Petroleum Commission, and I think it also represents APO's point of view, is that as African oil and gas producers, we want to send a message clearly across the world that we are not only interested in monetizing hydrocarbon resources, but we also want to do that, produce our oil and gas resources in a very sustainable manner. And at the global world, we are also committed to minimize gas emission and control the greenhouse gases.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. This is where time will permit us on the show, Energy 101. Thank you so much for doing the listening out there. My name is Aboagye-Wiafe. Tomorrow, you have to make way to the Labadi Beach Hotel, where the roundtable conference organized by Africa Petroleum Producers Organization in collaboration with the Petroleum Commission Ghana is taking place under the theme Towards Zero Routine Gas Flaring and Lower Methane Emissions in APO Oil and Gas Operations. Let's make a time next week for more interesting developments in the world of energy. Thank you so much for doing the listening. The program was partly brought to you kind courtesy of Bui Power Authority and GOIL. GOIL, good energy. GOIL, yeah. Have a good evening.